fury, clenching fists. I'll make them kneel, I'll watch them pay. You'll fear the monster I became today.
Assassin's Creed thing. After admitting that Star Wars Outlaws didn't do too hot, they have now delayed Assassin's Creed Shadows until February of next year. That's 2025. So, again, we're taking a look at this, and so Grums points this out. He says, interesting, Forbes is reporting that there is some talk about removing or reducing Yasuke's role in Assassin's Creed Shadows. I don't see how this is possible, but if these types of conversations are happening within Ubisoft, that would have been unthinkable 6 months ago. And it's true, we can hop back in time, but I want to go over here and we're going to take a look at Rhino. Rhino, the bouncer, at Rhino the bouncer. He's been kind of like on top of gaming news lately, so feel free to follow him over there on X, and he's got some news here. And he has a little bit of an expansion on what the Forbes article had to say here. And so it says, update regarding Ubisoft possibly delaying Assassin's Creed Shadows to reduce or erase Yasuke's role. Quote, within Shadow's delay, I have seen some talk about how they're using this time to patch out Yasuke or reduce his role in the game as a result of all of this. That's essentially impossible at this point. This is a 3-month delay for a feature complete game, and you are not going to tear out the entire meat of the story and replace it during that time. Again, I entirely agree with this. I'm not a game dev. I'm not a coder of any sort. I frankly just understand video games to be a very complex process that involves a lot of people and a lot of ideas and a lot of talent. And so it also takes some time. It also takes some time. It's not as simple as typing in erase Yasuke, and it just does that. The Unreal 5 engine, the Blender, all your coding, all that, it just does it. The computer's like, oh, gotcha, bro. And it deletes all the black guy. No, that's not what's going to happen. What I think is going to happen, and again, like the intro alluded, I think they're going to introduce as this downloadable free patch that everybody gets right out of the gate. I think what they're going to deal with is actually releasing a DLC about Yamauchi Taka. Now, I mentioned this in a previous video, but we've also gotten some new people on board. So if you're familiar with Yamauchi Taka, this is going to be a bit of a review mingled in with some theory, okay? So if you're not familiar with the character, welcome. We're going to talk about this today. So if you're not familiar, a long time ago, Yamauchi Taka used to be the central character to what was the Assassin's Creed Shadows original pitch. Now, what we have here is we have the story from Infinite Comic, Infinitail Comic, at Infinitail Comic. Please feel free to follow them. They are the original, I guess, narrative pitcher, I guess, the person that Ubisoft, or a part of a team that had been put together to come up with what Shadows was supposed to be about. And so this is some of their work on what we now understand to be the actual story of what happened here. So here we have it. So they say here, okay, this was the original story for Assassin's Creed Shadows. And they say, I worked on some narrative elements for the Sengoku era of Japan for Assassin's Creed Shadows back in 2013 to 2014, when I worked under contract in San Jose/Tokyo. I guess these were two interchangeable locations, I guess. They're not really close to each other. But I guess they tossed all that out for Black Samurai and some cannon-destroying Kunoichi boss. It's girl boss stuff, right? So I'm glad I'm not in that industry. I guess it's only fitting that my contributions to these studios vanished like everything else I worked on. Every MMO shooter I've worked on has been shut down. Here's a brief synopsis of the original story from what I can remember. It's been about a decade. So this person's recalling from memory. And they say the plot was focused on a young monk, Yamauchi Taka, as the playable ancestor to Desmond. Desmond was the original hero. He's no longer part of the Assassin's Creed playing experience. You don't need to be a genetic match to an ancestor to jump back anymore. Any random guy can just jump back in any random, well, girl, I guess, any random person now. It doesn't have to be anything, really. You just punch in the old Animus code and away you go, I guess, you know? I'm not even sure if the Animus is involved anymore. So here we go. So, a young monk who was the playable ancestor. Taka means hawk to coincide with the then naming convention of every playable hero named after a bird of prey. No idea of why, no idea if that changed with all of these newer disjointed games that no longer have Desmond as the core hero bound everything together. The main conflict was about the Sword of Eden, aka Excalibur. Hanyo. I think it's Hanyo. Could be Hanjo. Masamune. And so, again, I probably butchered that. You have to apologize. Even English, I'm screwing up today. So we got Genghis Khan's sword, and it says, and how it had given its latest wielder, Oda Nobunaga, an unfair advantage in his conquest of Japan. After Nobunaga is assassinated by Hattori Hanzo, Taka becomes part of the Brotherhood, and under Hanzo is trained as an assassin shinobi. The Brotherhood try to transport the recovered sword out of Japan, but are beset by the Templar, and it's lost. To make matters worse, Hanzo is assassinated, and he considers retirement as a monk. His lord Tokugawa Ieyasu charges Taka with finding the killer and recovering the sword. Um, Despite Nobunaga's successors Hideyoshi Toyotomi acquiring the sword and going on a rampage that extends into Korea, Taka steals the sword back, and the Mad Daimyo loses his power, weakening his campaign in Korea. All right, now I've spoken about this before, that we know that Thomas Lockley or some other people who have been exaggerating Yasuke's history suggested that he went on to fight under Toyotomi and into Korea. So that was not the case. Now, again, I don't know if that's Lockley himself, but that has been floated around again, that this extends into what made Yasuke a legend, was that he continued serving in Japan. And so, incensed by the theft, Toyotomi believes he was betrayed by the Templars and basically exterminates the Templars in Japan. Taka infiltrates Toyotomi's castle and faces him in a final battle, resulting in Toyotomi's death. The ambitious daimyo is left to die as Taka slips away before his retainers could intercept him. Now, the now seasoned assassin spares Toyotomi's infant heir, knowing the clan has lost its teeth and will eventually wither without Hideyoshi. Ieyasu begins his ambitious power grab, demanding Taka and the Brotherhood give him the sword and help him wipe away the Templar, all of his enemies from Japan, to fully unite it under his clan's banners. Taka and the Brotherhood decline and vanish in the shadows along with the sword. And so this was the original plot to what this person had been either hired in to work on or had submitted as a pitch to Ubisoft about 10 years ago. I believe they said they were hired in to do it. Now, as you may have been curious about, here is some of the concept work, or at least what I have been led to believe is concept work for Taka. As you know, he'd be wearing the face covering. I believe, I think Connor was the only other one to wear face covering. I could be wrong. I think there was a female character on like a PSP game that had one, but I think this concept art shows Taka being the only male that wears a face covering. So, and again, you saw in the intro, I made use of AI and I kind of combined the Strider look. You know, I like the idea of the Japanese protagonist having a red scarf that trails behind him like Strider. I know that's not Ubisoft's property, but when I think ninja, I think of like that face piece, that metal face piece, not like a piece of cloth. This is cool, but a metal face piece with the breathing vents around it, and then the red scarf trailing behind him. And I know that's totally against stealth, but look, he's wearing white, so come on. Does it make any difference? He's wearing white and metal. Everything's reflective about him as possible. Stealth. So here's another one. I assume he is looking upon the, now ended life of one of the daimyo here. And this again was how he was featured in the the app-based trading card game for the iPhone that lasted one whole year. That's right. We're going to read a little bit here about Yamauchi Taka at the Wikipedia page. Now, it says here that he was 1562 to 1639. That's his time frame of being alive in this fictional setting. And so he lived 77 years. Now, this would put him, again, right smack dab in the time frame that they're saying. Yasuke is showing up. Excuse me, this is a little bit after when Yasuke... This is right around the same time. Yamauchi would be a little bit, he'd be 17, 18 years old, I think, if I'm following the timeline correctly. He'd be right around that anyway, 16, 17, 18 years old, around the time of Yasuke, presumably when this game is set. And so that's kind of neat, I guess. I mean, I appreciate that they're still working inside of that particular time frame of the Sengoku era, as opposed to, later, earlier installments. It is a very intense time politically that they chose. So, Yamauchi Taka was a monk and a member of the Japanese Brotherhood of Assassins, active during the Sengoku period of Japan. He was a friend of fellow assassin Hattori Hanzo, and after Hanzo's death, worked closely with Tokugawa Ieyasu. Now, that's what we read in the info dump from Infinicomic there. Now, what I want to point out about this is that this information is about the Assassin's Creed Memories card game that's based on that iPhone game that I just told you only lasted about a year. This right over here. This information comes from Assassin's Creed Memories. As you can see right here, it launched July of 2014, and just a little over a year later, it was done. It was all over with, a little under a year later, rather. A little under a year later, it was all over with. And so there it is. So they did work Taka into the official lore of the game, but probably in the most minor way possible. I mean, like I suppose you could put him on like napkins for children's birthday parties if you have a kid that is celebrating Assassin's Creed birthday parties. There's a lot of questions about that one, but it's a new world, I guess. In June of 1582, Taka made contact with Shea Shirojiro Kiyanubu. Again, I probably murdered that. I'm very sorry. To retrieve information for a mission he was assigned to by Hanzo, knowing that Oda Nobunaga would soon be attacked by his vassal Mitsuhide. Kiyonobu revealed that Taka was to retrieve Nobunaga's Sword of Eden before it could fall into enemy hands. On the 21st of June, during Mitsuhide's attack at Honoji, the Honoji Temple, I think that's how you pronounce it, Honoji, could be wrong, Honoji, maybe. Taka killed Nobunaga and brought the sword to the Chinese assassin Liu Yan to transport it away from Japan. It's a bit of a slap in the face, honestly. I don't like that at all. I prefer that the Japanese assassins retained control of it and got it away from the daimyos and stored it on maybe like one of those small hurricane-prone islands that nobody lives on, those little spats of land that are about the size of a parking lot, That would like bury that 12 feet underground, probably have nobody bother it there, right? That makes sense. But I don't know about giving it to the Chinese assassins. That feels like you're inviting trouble. I don't know. Not exactly like they had a great relationship at this time either. So, but in 1596, Hanzo was murdered by Fuma Kataro and, Fuma Kataro, and his lord Tokugawa Ieyasu reached out to Taka to investigate his murder, realizing that none of Hanzo's rivals had the will or resources to launch such an attack, leading them to suspect that the imperial regent Toyotomi Hideyoshi had been behind the attack. Ieyasu sent Taka to Matsumune, a daimyo willingly serving the Toyotomi, to find any possible leads. After subduing Masamune, Taka acted upon this information and killed Hideyoshi at Fushimi Castle. I'm sorry. I'm very sorry. I just don't want to get it wrong. It's Fushimi Castle in 1598. So again, this is through the card game that we're getting this information. I'm stumbling over it because I like to discover this stuff with you guys as opposed to like scripting it all out and talking like a robot. So I have this information here coming to me just as quickly as it comes to you. We're discovering it together here if you've never looked at this page like I haven't. I didn't even know that this game existed. You know, I'm not an Assassin's Creed kind of like appreciator. Maybe I'm an enjoyer. I'm not sure which side of that meme I'm on. I cut out after 3. It just 4 didn't interest me, so I didn't come back. I didn't have any particular like, you know, axe to grind, I guess. I just didn't. It wasn't something that occurred to me. I enjoyed Connor's story. I had fun with the whole concept of the Templar trying to poison the American Revolution, and then son of the Templar, if you will, being a guy that kind of foils all that in concert with the American founders. I didn't have a problem with that. That was perfectly fine. Uh, I kind of like that Connor got along with the founders. That was kind of cool to see that kind of relationship form. That he was kind of like, yeah, that's a neat idea you got going there. And that was neat, you know. And then again, like this had roots to be something really interesting. We've made it just a little bit in here, and there's a little more information on him. But as you can see, this is from the game. We saw the images before. This is from the game here. This is what he looked like as a monk. And we go through and learn more about Taka just in the sense of like what was available through the trading card game. And this has obviously been extrapolated from Infinite Comics contributions to Taka's lore. And so that's what Assassin's Creed could have become. Let's put it that way. Now, I'm not entirely impressed with all this murder of Japanese historical figures. I I kind of prefer it when you're dealing with fictional bad guys that are doing all this nasty stuff. So I get that you go through in the Assassin's Creed story and kill, historical figures. I understand that. But it's one of those things that kind of, I go back and forth on a little bit. I get a little it just feels weird, I guess, enacting a modern morality out on the past. It seems sort of strange these days, I guess. But again, we're looking at this through a lens of reality when this game has, in the past, attempted to be historically accurate, but didn't bill itself that way. And now it has with Assassin's Creed Shadows going out and bragging that they hired um, all these experts, these history professors, that sort of thing, in order to make sure that they presented the most authentic Sengoku. And yet, this guy gets left by the wayside. So that's why I think they're going to go and put a DLC together. Here's the meat of it, okay? They're going out here and they're creating all of this weird stuff, right? They went out here and they made this one-legged Torii gate, and we know, you and I both know that this is absolutely unacceptable. Just a quick Google search will tell you that a one-legged Torii gate is a very bad thing to go commercializing, especially as an outsider. I could see like a commemorative mini statue being made, right? That has some type of, sort of significance around it rather than just being something that's on a shelf in a store. But this does not have significance around it. This is meant to evoke an emotion, right? That these two are defending a broken Torii gate, which suggests that there's trouble in the time that they are doing this in. But the fact that Naue is sitting on it, and the fact that Yasuke is just absolutely bemused here, he has just the absolute wrong expression. And again, I think his eyes are pointing in different directions. So just a really bizarre composition when again, all you have to do is Google what a Torii gate is. And you know immediately that it's not okay to depict these things as being broken. It's really not. It's a broken cross. It's a broken Star of David. It's a broken Buddhist symbol. I forget what they call it. My apologies. It's this broken. It's a ripped American flag. It's a very not like comfortable thing to have associated with your product. It means negativity, very bad things, and it means things that are more emotional than what money should really be tied to. This comes to the root of why Assassin's Creed has had so many stumbling points with this Japanese edition. The Japanese really value their history. And so, again, this isn't something like entirely unique to the Japanese, that no other culture on earth does this. The Mormons built a mountainside archive to keep track of their bloodlines. So there are there are schools of thought in the world that follow kind of the same thinking, that to preserve the history as a living thing is sort of uncouth. You should preserve the history as being set in stone, as you can't change it, so you should observe it as how it existed rather than trying to update it for how we see it as modern people. And so when we take this with an American sort of angle, that, I liked Connor fooling around with the American founders because it was something plausible in my mind. I find it incredibly hard to believe that a African samurai clad in full war armor on a sunny, breezy Tuesday, just walking around, there's no threat of all-out war, so he's just in full armor walking around. Again, think that how strange this would be is that if you saw like a frontline ready soldier just trotting through town, you're just going about your day, you're getting a coffee, parking your car, paying the meter, whatever you do, and you turn around and there's just he's got the backpack, the helmet, all the gizmos up here, all the dangly parts, the pouches, the armor, the weaponry, all the weaponry, and he's just going. He's just walking through town. It's a Tuesday. He's not headed anywhere in particular, and he's just strutting through town. That's what's happening in these previews when we see Yasuke just walking around in his full armor and people are bowing to him. It's an incredibly bizarre and unsettling sight if you're just a citizen, by the way, because that means he's either seeking danger, like he's been told something you don't know, or he's expecting danger. And once again, he knows something you don't know. These kinds of feelings and emotions in people, especially when you're not aware, or at least not willing to pay, like, homage or any type of respect, rather, to where that originally comes from, or at least the emotional impact it is most associated with. So this is what I tell people about this, is that there's no way that Ubisoft had no idea what that one-legged Torii gate meant, okay? There's no way they didn't know. There's absolutely no way that their people in the Japanese staff that they tell us are part of the production, there's no way the cultural experts they hired, there's no way the history experts they hired would let that go by without protest. So they absolutely were well and truly aware of what they were doing here and what they were up to. It's very, I don't know, disingenuous, I guess is the word to say here. But Ubisoft having kind of problems with, the racial identity of people isn't new. There is a glitch in the game. This gentleman appears to be, getting the Yasuke out of him, as you can see here. Even Connor's a bit confused. But as you can see, this is not new for Ubisoft and them having trouble with the game that they might want to go and do these patches with. Again, after Star Wars Outlaws being so ridiculed for having the early access issues that it did, I don't understand early access. I think it's foolish as a company to let something out that isn't finished to begin with. And then to charge money for it is even more astonishing, really. But as you could see, this might have been something that happens in Assassin's Creed Shadows. You're just going along, and all of a sudden, Yasuke's shaders freak out a little bit, and all of a sudden, he's looking more like William Adams than Yasuke, Who knows? There could be other problems with it, too, where you have NPCs like this, that we saw the butt bowing, we saw the horses that are moonwalking, and the ghost table that's floating around the room. So, who knows? This is from the company that delivered us the floating eyeballs and teeth situation. So I'm hesitant to believe that they didn't already really take care of that, ready for the November release. I'm hesitant to believe that they were ready to run with that, and then only just turned around and decided, nah, let's fix that. We're just gonna wait for everybody to complain about it. Then we were gonna go fix all those problems, because game testers, who's ever heard of those, right? Who's ever heard of those? But I think we ought to go back down memory lane, because a lot of things about this have gotten lost in the conversation about what's going on. And I think to Ubisoft's ignorance, to really highlight what's happening here, I think we need to remember that While Yasuke is beheading people, he is shouting, "I am justice." You know, after he's massacring people, ending them. Now, again, this is not a actual Japanese historical figure that I could find when I went searching for this. Okay, this person's the name we see up here, Jiro. When I went to look for Jiro in Japanese history, this was not a person, at least, that made it into the history books in a way that was recorded as associated with Nobunaga, the Sengoku era, or any type of like political uprising or military action at that time. So I don't know if this person was real or not, but as far as the game is concerned, my research is concerned, this is a fake person being beat up by the UbiYasuke, the clown here. But he is shouting, "I am justice," while he cuts this man's head off here. And what we need to remember is this is not appropriate, okay? Again, Assassin's Creed's protagonists have always been native sons of the lands they are defending. Even Connor was a son of the Americas that he was defending against the Templar taking over. And you remember again that Naue is a Japanese citizen, to our knowledge. Naue is a Japanese citizen, and she is the ninja stealth element to all of this. But the emphasis on their advertising has been on Yasuke, because I guess they're very proud of themselves for being able to create a character that does this to people. Just, stomps them down and stomps on their head. And that's how they operate with this character. But even then, we need to go back to like way back before this game's name was announced. And thanks to Rhino, we've got that. So this was back when Assassin's Creed Shadows was known as Assassin's Creed Codename Red. All right? Kind of like how they were borrowing from the Mountain Dew flavors, I guess. I don't know. But it seemingly confirmed that it was going to launch. It was Ubisoft Korea and Japan general manager Ozan Kosioglu, maybe. I'm sorry. I'm not trying to be bad about that. Anyway, we have this. So this is what originally was leaked about what this game was going to do. Because again, all this stuff kind of gets lost in the optionally gay thing and Yasuke being blown up to be this legendary samurai that can create earthquakes when he stomps his foot. So either way, we have this is what was originally promised. So Assassin's Creed franchise as a whole isn't moving to a new engine. They've confirmed that they're not. They're just beefing up everything. So they have the Anvil pipeline that they mention here. The Anvil pipeline allows Assassin's Creed studios to work from one unified branch. Pretty neat. Assassin's Creed will benefit visually from lines of ray trace global illumination. Now, what did we find out with the PS5, right? Excuse me, yeah, the PS5 Pro there. It's got all that fancy ray tracing. Well, apparently this was supposed to take advantage of that. Teams completely overhauled everything in the series, including animations, parkour, dynamic weather, and more. And of course, they've been obsessed with their season changing and how you can go from summer to winter and leave your rice outside and nobody cares, apparently. Assassin's Creed Red will be the first of a gigantic leap as a whole the franchise is taking. Now, there has been really nothing revolutionary put into Assassin's Creed Shadows. You have a dual protagonist mode, like play mode, but that's just, choose your character. That's it. It's not groundbreaking in any way, shape, or form. Choosing their sexuality, not anything, wasn't anything new to the game either. I think of Valhalla, I was told that you're allowed to choose the sexuality of a character. So it's not, again, so we've not seen anything like on its face presented to us that is groundbreaking as far as like even the franchise itself is concerned, let alone games of this type. So Codename RPG, Codename Red will be the last of the fantasy RPG formula introduced in Origins, which personally I think that's better. I think that the game does a lot better when it's focusing more on the single player, get to the mission objective sort of thing. It would do much better if it leaned into like Ghost Recon or some of that Rainbow Six stuff that they got laying around. If it leaned less into the visual aesthetic of that and more into the spirit of those things, if you will, that would probably help it. We don't necessarily need like Japanese samurai riding around in helicopters, but I don't think that'll hurt. I don't think that'll hurt. So, the other thing is that we go down here and we find out about the gameplay. Combat in Codename Red, and as I said, where Codename Red is Shadows. And so it's very similar to Valhalla, but with more gore, including blood and decapitations. Now, again, this is coming through, right? We're now seeing what they actually delivered on all these promises. We saw Yasuke just cut a guy's head off while declaring he's justice, you know? Stealth plays a major role in Red, akin to Splinter Cell. It plays a major role for Naue. There's nothing subtle about Yasuke. We see him like jumping through walls and all of this stuff. Like, um, yeah, like he's just obliterating things. Like this person here is Scratchpoint at Scratchpoint Z over on X says if the Japanese thought Godzilla was destructive force, just wait until they're introduced to diversity, right? So you got UbiYasuke here, and he's just wrecking house. He's just destroying everybody's everything. Just running through people's houses, knocking over their fish, kicking over their fruits, just waiting for one guy to scream, "My cabbages!" Remember that? Avatar: The Last Airbender? We'll get back here. Excuse me. So stealth plays a major role in Naue's experience in the game. Players extinguish torches to hide their shadow, hide bodies in tall grass, sneak through bushes, go prone, that sort of thing. And we found out what happens when you go into the tall grass and in Outlaws, right? In Star Wars Outlaws, when you go into the grass, you're undetectable. You could be right in front of the stormtroopers, you could be shooting them, and they can't find you in the tall grass. You literally vanish from the plane of reality for them. Amazing. Major evolution to the settlement system from Valhalla. Players build their settlement in a big way named the Hideout. So this seems to follow what happened in Fallout 76, where you could build a base. Seems to be a bit of that going on here. I'm not exactly sure the customization level. We haven't heard much on that, at least the advertisements that I have seen and the public like discussions of what goes on in Assassin's Creed Shadows has not confirmed that you'll be like building a base. I may have missed that, but that has not been something I've seen confirmed. So let's just, it could be they just forgot to mention it because everything else is on their mind first. Who knows? The hideout allows players to build at their own will and likes kind of like it acts like an armory, a dojo, an altar, sort of this kind of stuff in order to proceed with either improving your ability to fight or recruiting more people into your fight. Hideout buildings are customizable too, from picking building location to choosing roof design, the interior layout, and display of your weapons and armor. That doesn't seem like it's gonna make anybody angry. That's nah. I don't think that's gonna no. Nobody's gonna use that opportunity to make something horrendous. So I don't know if this made it through. Like I said, I haven't heard much about this. I don't think I've heard anything about this. So I don't think this made it through to the final cut. There'll be fewer map markers, which encourages players to explore. And they did talk about this open world thing. And again, we saw what they have to offer with an open world with Outlaws. So, are you really going to find anything out there beyond the markers? Are you really going to find anything out there? The map is, that of Valhalla, but it's smaller than Odyssey. So I guess it's an explorable area, but you're not going to go all over the countryside. You're going to have what amounts to probably about 10 miles to wander around inside of, probably. And that's okay. That's a pretty long place to go on horseback or on foot. So you'll be utilizing grappling hooks similar to the Sekiro and Ghost of Tsushima. So as we know, we've seen some of this with Naue's demonstration that she is using these ropes and things like that to kind of Spider-Man her way around parkour style. Yasuke has a difficulty going through a doorway without breaking through it. So, you'll be able to choose different stances, NPCs defend themselves, you'll be able to recruit enemies as spies. Yasuke is adept at sumo wrestling. We have not yet seen that demonstrated yet, but he can stomp and create an earthquake, so I can only assume that there's some god-awful, like, side mission or incredibly stupid scene where you have Yasuke and you have to press X, at the edge of the circle. Oh no, he's gonna get pushed out. Press X harder. Da, 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 da. And then all of a sudden you win the fight, right? It's gonna be great. So Naoe, of course, she's going to be carrying the regular expected ninja equipment. And each of the two characters has their own unique traits and weapons. And we've seen this demonstrated. Naoe gets around leaping from rooftop to rooftop, and Yasuke barely survives jumping from a rooftop into a pile of hay. So, granted, he just gets up and walks away, but that's an awfully hard landing from full armor, right? So he's carrying an extra, like, probably 70 pounds at least, if that's not all metal. And if it is, then, he's close to 120 pounds extra weight he's walking around with. Most of that's up on his noggin. So, not most of it, really. It's just a lot of metal up there. So, and it may involve naval combat, exploration as job listings for Ubisoft Singapore hint at the Naval C3. So again, the male lead is based on a real-life African samurai, Yasuke, and of course, they've even admitted that that's up for update, for debate, rather. So again, probably not gonna stick with that one 100%. We're just gonna leave that to be up for interpretation. His story is written to align with the game's story and direction, and we've seen this, right? So again, I'm just pointing out things that came through. Again, launching projected for 2024. Ubisoft business development brand partnership teams have been seeking sponsorship partners for 2024. That seems to be going very well for them, huh? Now that they pushed the game back to 25. Seems all these sponsorships, right, seem to be going very well. It's rumored to have its own world premiere revealed between May and June with the launch, and we saw this. We saw this whole thing play out, and we saw the incredibly lackluster response to their big giant brick that they put up in the middle of Gamescom, and we saw them run away from the Tokyo Game Show as well. So it seems to be not going so well for Ubisoft these days, and honestly, it comes down to a matter of, like, taste. We have art for fans here, and I want to point out this is official licensed concept arts made by artists from video games and cinema industries. Now, again, I can't verify if this is legit that or not. Anybody, you could be a dog on the internet and nobody knows, okay? You could be a dog on the internet and nobody knows. But this year, they're advertising this stunning artwork of Assassin's Creed Shadows provides an idyllic view of Wakasa Bay. While you're waiting to visit this must-see location in Assassin's Creed Shadows, treat yourself to a magnificent view from your living room. So check it out. It looks like they just blurred out a regular picture. And honestly, you just go through with the retouch function in an AI, and you can generate all these guys off of a regular picture from somebody's Facebook post. If you're posting like high-quality pictures on your Facebook, yeah, somebody probably lifted them to put them in their video game concept art. You could tell, like, you got a guy in like full armor and then you forgot his pants. Like, what are you doing, pal? Are you preparing for like a water battle, like a beach battle? And you just thought, yeah, I probably better wear the upper body heavy parts, but not the lower body heavy parts. And then, of course, his spear is bent. No, this is not like you're not dealing with the Maori. You're not dealing with people who carve these things just for the purpose of battle. That these are actual cast metal most of the time, if not they're like carved, very strong bamboo shafts. They're not made into bendy, weird things like that, unless they're, of course, impacted and purposely warped. So, and this guy, he's just standing there, right? He's just chilling out, like, what's up? And then, of course, you just put it over your fancy old, what is that, day bed? There you go. Congratulations, you have a day bed just for you. Now, I want to mention that the writer of that article that started this, Mr. Paul Tassi, he said that people, right? He said people are talking about this. He did not include that this was Ubisoft, okay? That this was Ubisoft who was doing this. So I can't conclude that this is their goal, that they're going to reduce Yasuke. I personally don't think that's the case. I do believe that they're going to seriously try to push for that DLC to introduce Taka. I think that that's the best shot that they've got, and I think they've recognized that. They have the investors breathing down their necks, and now apparently they also have the EU, the trade union, breathing down their necks over violations of, like, loot crates and pay to win, this kind of stuff. So it's not looking good for them, and they've got to save face somehow, and this seems like the easiest way to do it, and they've already talked about these day one free DLCs that are coming through, so why not? You just pop the game in, and then, by the way, boo-doo-doo, you get a notification and you get a free DLC download of Yamauchi Taka, The Wings of Destiny, and that kind of stuff. And that's what you get. I don't know. You'll have to let me know down in the comments what you think about this whole thing. But to top things off, finally, to close this whole thing out, the Ubisoft CEO, Mr. Gilmon, he had to say this. He says, making solid games isn't enough for gamers anymore. They are expecting extraordinary experiences. And so this is why they are going back to the drawing board with Assassin's Creed Shadows by polishing it, if you will. Now, I'm not sure what you might make out of that. Again, let me know down in the comments below. But in my opinion, what's happened here is they're going to go back and bring Taka through. It's the only option they have. But until then, guys, we'll see you in the next one, and good luck out there.